As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We have a returning guest tonight. Jerry Robinson, founder of Follow the Money Daily and author of Bankruptcy of Our Nation, is back here with us on Reluctant Preppers. Welcome back, Jerry.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
We'd like to field a couple of questions with you tonight. The first one I wanted to get out of the way is, and I honestly, I was thinking I don't want to ask any questions about the presidential elections in the U.S. because we're inundated with news stories about that. You can't turn around without having either people bring it up in conversation or having it be the centerpiece on the news. But there is an aspect of it that I think is quite relevant to the interests of our viewers here on Reluctant Preppers, because as we talk about the need to be aware and prepared, and in your book, Bankruptcy of Our Nation, you talk about the playing out of macro events over a period of time that have brought our nation into a very precarious situation, the U.S. dollar at great risk of eventual collapse. And the question I would pose to you is, does the president make any difference? Does it matter who we put in the White House to the playing out of these events, or have we passed a point of mathematical certainty and it's going to happen no matter what? And if so, what influence could an individual entering that office make that would either accelerate or decelerate or make it more or less dangerous for the individual, for families? So if you could look at with us that topic of, does it make any difference who gets elected president as far as the bankruptcy of our nation?
Well, that's a really good question. And, this election cycle has been so bizarre. I mean, this has been one of the more bizarre ones, although it's not unique. I mean, you can go back to 1968. You remember George Wallace was running and Nixon was running, and was it Herbert Humphrey that was running? And it in many ways, it mirrors what's happening today. History is not on a repeat cycle, but it does rhyme, I think, like Mark Twain had once said. And so we just kind of see these repeats of and repeating cycles of things throughout history. And one of them is this. And we have a lot of chaos happening in the 2016 election. I am aghast at what's happening in the GOP. The GOP certainly has all kinds of problems, and everybody knows that. Everybody's written about that. They're very well known and very well defined. But what's happened now is really beyond belief, with the absolute gridlock that already exists in the Senate and exists in the House. There's absolute no traction getting anything done. Nothing has been dealt with in Washington. The Social Security problem that we're facing has not been dealt with. The Medicare problem that we face, it's a terrible, terrible debt that we're going to owe. We are not going to be able to pay it. Medicaid is going to go bankrupt. I mean, unemployment compensation is going to go bankrupt. I mean, there is no plan. Now, if there is a plan in place where we can actually see the numbers on paper and it does not equal a negative number in the red, then yes, maybe we can turn this thing around, and perhaps even temporarily. There's no necessity that America has to fall right now. The only thing that we can clearly see is that it is sinking, and therefore the path of least resistance for America is down. We expect this country to continue down the same path that it's been going for the last several years because we have fake money. Our money is fake. Our debt is fake. Another thing that's fake is our two-party system. Our two-party system is fake. Republicans and Democrats are opposing to each other. I guarantee that there are many people who were supporting Marco Rubio that the minute he dropped out, they turned their eyes to Hillary Clinton because they're not going to vote for Trump. It's a complete joke that there are two parties in this country. And I think what's happened with Trump, and I think what he has done, he has unveiled or opened the eyes of the American people to some really ugly things. Very, very, very ugly. He's talked about how he has owned these politicians. He talks about how he gives them money and how they do whatever he wants. These politicians have not denied this because they know that's exactly what they do. And now the politicians are freaking out in Washington. Why are they so concerned about Donald Trump? Are they concerned about your child? Are they concerned about you? Are they concerned about your health? Are they concerned about your welfare? Of course not. What they're concerned about is their reelection. Their reelection is at stake. Because remember, if Donald Trump drags the entire unvoting public out of their slumber and brings them into the ballot box, who do you think those people are going to vote for? And they may not vote for you. It's a big gamble. So you need to prevent Trump from being on the general ticket, because that means you're going to bring out a whole lot of people who have never voted before, and that's a sure path to you working back at the burger flipping joint. Or in most cases, these guys have huge degrees. They end up just going right back into the private sector lobbying, and it's that revolving door that exists in Washington. But no, I think we are on the track downwards. I don't think that any one man can save America. Of course, as a Christian, I believe that putting your trust in kings or princes is one of the pretty much the height of arrogance. Men cannot rule men. It's not capable. And we cannot be governed either. I mean, I think history is nothing but a proof that man cannot rule himself and that men cannot be governed by men. So I think that putting hope in Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or any of these guys is a fool's game. I think we are heading down, and I think we need to be prepared.
Now, just pointing one example of that is we were told midway through the Obama presidency that just during his term he had put on more additional debt to the U.S. debt than all the former presidents combined, if I'm remembering that correctly. And my question is that a factor of the man in the role, or is it a factor of the party and their policies, or is it a factor of the hockey stick of exponential growth, and that's just the part of the curve that we're on now, and it doesn't matter whose face you put behind that Oval Office desk, you're still riding that same mathematical curve of exponential growth.
Yeah, so many people today are really outraged at the amount of debt that Obama has accumulated. And of course, when you look at Bush, you find out, Bush the younger, he actually doubled the national debt. And there was rarely any kind of hoop and holler out of the Senate or the House of Representatives from the Republican side about doubling the national debt. But suddenly, in this newfound era of a black president on the Democratic side, there is suddenly this angst about the debt loads. So it's a new fascination that occurred around January 20th, 2009, that Americans began to become very, very concerned about the growth of debt. And debt is unfortunate in the fact that it's not just something that we owe, it's something that we own. Our money itself is debt. We've talked about that before on the broadcast, how money itself, at the very top, it says Federal Reserve note. It's clearly a loan. It is a loan made by the Federal Reserve. So it is a debt-based system. Our money is fake. Our debt is fake. I mean, everything is fake. Our food is fake. Our two-party system is fake. So we have a lot of challenges, that face us. And so I also want to throw in and say that while I don't endorse any candidate at all, and rarely, although I have been sympathetic to Ron Paul in the past, greatly sympathetic. We've interviewed him and his son on our show, and we believe in many of their principles. I must say that Trump has some very, very compelling ideas. And although I hesitate to call them ideas because they really are just blurbs that he has said, I haven't really read any of course, I have read a couple of his documents that he's put out. But for the most part, his ideas sound crazy to some, but some of his ideas do make sense, such as pushing back at China, pushing back at Japan. He's been saying this for a long time. Why are all of our products made overseas? And if you want to stem the tide here in America, that is one thing. So in some ways, Donald Trump could, in a strange way, and I guess I have to make this strange argument, he could accelerate our demise. At the same time, he could also slow our demise. The way that he would slow our demise is that if he could succeed in not wrecking the global economy by throwing up massive tariffs and having trade wars and currency wars, because right now the global economy is extremely sensitive. China and Japan have already warned that they do not want Donald Trump messing with existing trade policies. They were all jazzed and hooped. I mean, they were all ready for TPP and TTIP. All this stuff was supposed to go through, and then here comes Trump and Sanders rattling the cages, bringing all the barbarians to the gate now. And now suddenly all of their trade plans have been exposed, and they weren't really planning on this level of media coverage. One other thing before you ask your next question is simply this. Always beware when you have this kind of news cycle. Right now we have Donald Trump everywhere, 24/7. You turn on the TV, it's Trump, 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 Trump. Do you know who loves that? Whoever is underneath in the darkness and doesn't want to be seen. People do things during times like these that you wouldn't believe. And many news stories get completely ignored and are never heard of during times like these, where you have one person completely hijacking the media for a period of weeks at a time. One such story was what we were talking about off the air with the Iran deal, Iran and 9/11. It's a crazy, crazy thing. So there's crazy things happening right now with Trump in focus.
Before we leave Trump behind, I wanted to ask one more question about him. We've heard from other guests on our show that the establishment party leaders will stop at nothing to submarine, to sabotage, to do anything to stop a Trump candidacy. And we've also been told for some time by other guests on our show is that there are incredibly powerful machinations that have to be done and are done on an ongoing basis to sustain the current system, whether it's the plunge protection team protecting the equity markets from dropping too fast, whether it's the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates even down into potentially negative territory to keep flooding liquidity into the market, to keep propping up the appearance of flush economy, even though the fundamentals of the economy aren't supporting that, whether it's the Exchange Stabilization Fund sopping up U.S. treasuries that have been dumped by foreign holders so that it won't flood the market with unwanted dollars and really reveal the real quantity of dollars that are out there, that sort of thing. All of these unseen hands, you mentioned the people in the darkness, all these unseen hands that are propping up this teetering house of cards. When we hear that in one ear and we hear in the other ear that the powers that be will stop at nothing to stop someone such as Trump who vows he won't be beholden to these incumbent power centers, it's not too far of a leap to ask, if he were to prevail or to be perceived as being too successful moving forward or get elected, is it possible or even probable that those unseen hands would then be withdrawn and let the house of cards topple all over Trump or a country that had endorsed him and had turned their back on the unseen masters? Do you see that as a probable catalyzing event of a sudden collapse, or do you think other ways of the bankruptcy of our nation playing out are more probable?
That's a really interesting way to put it. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but I reckon that I would view it slightly differently. I guess my natural reaction to that question would be more along the lines of the powers that be have a tremendous interest in remaining in power, and I don't think that they would simply give up for one individual who they thought they couldn't control for a 4-year cycle. I mean, it's a lot to give up for a 4-year cycle. You're not going to simply just let it implode whenever you have everything at stake in that system. You see, that's the point. These people who are propping it up, they're propping it up not because of their generosity, not because of their altruism. They're propping it up because it's their life, it's their livelihood. I mean, they literally have to, because they benefit from it. So there's obviously that. I wouldn't think that we would see that. I would think more of a great struggle, probably just a wonderful amount of entertainment you and I are going to be able to watch on TV every evening as we see Trump engaging. And, look at Obama. Look at somebody who is extremely idealistic. Obama goes into the White House. He has this tremendous idealism. If you see him in a 2006 or 2007 video, or even 2008 when he's just before he becomes president, he has this tremendous amount of zeal in his eyes. He has this tremendous amount of enthusiasm. And then he is sworn in. And then he, of course, has the obligatory meeting with the NSA right? And they always walk out after those meetings with the look of death in their eyes, as if, okay, now I understand how the system works. And so we have to see if Trump has that moment. I mean, Obama went in saying all of these wonderful things that he was going to do, and then he got in and he found out that, guess what? You don't make the rules, right? So these guys are caricatures. They don't realize that the system is entrenched, and I'm not even sure they realize it until they get there. And I don't think it's some sort of, Wizard of Oz, man behind the curtain sort of thing. I simply think it's a good old boys club. It's cronyism, and it's been going on for a very, very, very long time. And Trump isn't in on the, he's not playing in the sandbox. And so it's just going to be an epic battle that maybe Trump will concede quickly to get things done. Maybe he'll fight, and we'll have a real spectacle on our hands. I don't know. We'll have to watch and see. I'm not sure.